So when the Obsolete Man first came out on the Twilight Zone many, many moons ago, it was almost like a Broadway production of something, a pro thought presentation. If you've never seen this episode, may I warn you beforehand, it's kind of mimicking a lot what's going on in the United States. Different, the right wing people that are trying to take over most of the countries. Do you want to eliminate free thought through the cult mentality? This is called The Obsolete Man, and the pretty well the male muse of Twilight Zone, Burgess Meredith, has a lead in this. Now, this is episode 65 of the series, season 2. It stars again the great Burgess Meredith, the Oscar nominee, as Romney Wordsworth, the accused, and Fritz Weaver, a very underrated performer, as the chancellor and prosecutor of a trial involving Wordsworth for being spiritual and basically promoter of the word. It originally aired on June 2nd, 61, and was later adapted for the Twilight Zone radio drama starring, of all people, Jason Alexander as Wordsworth. Now, it was directed by Elliot Silverstein, tremendous, and there was some controversy about a certain scene we'll get into later on, which led to a change in the Directors Guild. It was written by Rod Serling. Besides Meredith and Fritz Weaver, Joseph Ellick played the subaltern. Now, in Serling's opening narration, you walk into this room at your own risk because it leads to the future, not a future that will be one that might be. But one that might be. This is not a new world, it is simply an extension of what began in the old one. It has patterned itself after every dictator was ever planted the ripping imprint of a boot of the pages of history since the beginning of time. It has refinements, technological advances, and a more sophisticated approach to destruction of human freedom. But like every one of the superstates that preceded it, has one iron rule. Logic is an enemy and truth is a menace. This is Mr. Romney Wordsworth in his last 48 hours on Earth. He's a citizen of the state, but will soon have to be eliminated because he's built out of flesh and because he has a mind. Mr. Romney Wordsworth will draw his last breaths in the Twilight Zone. Of course, when the Burgess Meredith character enters, he is being built on trial. You are found to be obsolete. Now, in the future totalitarian state, Wordsworth is put on trial for being obsolete. His professed occupation as a librarian is punished by death, as the state has eliminated books. His faith in God is taken as further proof of obsolescence, as the atheist state claims to have proven God does not exist. Following a bitter exchange, the chancellor finds Wordsworth guilty and sentenced him to death within 48 hours, allowing him to choose his method and exact time place of execution. Wordsworth requests that he be granted a personal assassin, who will be the only one who knows the method of his death, and that his execution to be televised nationwide from his room at midnight on the following day. Although Wordsworth's demand for privacy is unprecedented, the Chancellor grants both requests. Now, 11:15 the following night, the Chancellor visits Wordsworth in his now monitored room, responding to the latter's invitation out of curiosity. Wordsworth reveals that he has chosen to die in a bomb explosion at midnight. The Chancellor expresses approval until Wordsworth further states that he's locked the door and the Chancellor would die with him. He also points out that, as the events are being broadcast live, the state would risk losing its status in the people's eyes if it chose to rescue the Chancellor. Wordsworth brings out an illegal, long-hidden copy of the Bible, reading the great Psalm 23 and portions of several other Psalms aloud to express his trust in God. Now, in the final minute before midnight, the Chancellor breaks down and begs to be let go in the name of God. Wordsworth agrees to do so on these terms and unlocks the door for him. The Chancellor flees from the room just before the bomb explodes, killing Wordsworth. Due to his cowardly display in Wordsworth's room and invocation of God, the Chancellor is replaced by his own subaltern and declared obsolete. He protests against this verdict and tries to escape, but the tribunal's attendants overwhelm him and rip him to shreds. And the volume it goes like, and literally he's ripped to death. Now, unusually, Serling appears on camera to deliver the closing narration. The Chancellor, the late Chancellor, was only partly correct. He was obsolete, but so was the state, the entity he worshipped. Any state, any entity, any ideology which fails to recognize the worth, the dignity, the rights of man, that state is obsolete. a case to be filed under M for Mankind in the Twilight Zone. Now, the set pieces, interior, exterior, the high altar, literally, where Fritz Weaver is first gives the verdict. It's well put together, but the big controversy about this is that the director and the creation team, he asked the editor in charge who edited a certain way, and the person said no. And later changes to the guild. If a person refused a director's way of editing it, that person would be fired. And if I'm not mistaken, this was a precedent case that's still being recognized some 60 some years later. Now, usually Serling delivered his closing narration off camera, but for the early episode of World of His Own, Serling delivered a closing narration of that episode on camera, as he would for the Obsolete Man and Season 3's The Fugitive. Serling's original narration was longer, but the middle section was cut for broadcast. As scripted, the original narration reads as follows, with the cut section saying, any state, entity, or ideology becomes obsolete when it stockpiles the wrong weapons, when it captures territories but not mines, when it enslaves millions but convinces nobody, when it is naked yet puts on armor and calls it faith, while in the eyes of God it has no faith at all. Now, the closing narration, ironically, was sampled in the song Thieves, Scream to Ghost by American hip-hop duo Run the Jewels on their 2016 album. Talking about the Obsolete Man has been referred to many times in relation to what they call secular and religious texts. And a very interesting read is something in the Catholic world called Human Liberty and the Obsolete Man. Again, talks about the enemies of faith. When we say enemies of faith, it has to do with the overall concept that atheism is a religion in itself. Now, ironically, this was Burgess Meredith's second appearance on the Twilight Zone. It was a year and a half after Time Enough at Last, of course, where he played the bank worker who was caught in a nuclear explosion that saved everything but his local library. Very determined. Now, when Fritz Weaver portrays a high-ranking member of a totalitarian state who at one point admires Adolf Hitler, ironically, Weaver went on to play a Jewish victim of the Holocaust in the TV series The Holocaust. Now, if you go to this episode, you'll notice certain things. The layout and the presentation can easily change at a stage. Now, the stage version of the Obsolete Man has been done many times across North America, and I would figure it was off Broadway for a while. Now, the Obsolete Man radio TV program is available on audible.ca, narrated by, again, Stacy Keach, and starring Jason Alexander. Now, this came out in 2002. There's many, you can probably hear the free version of this episode through YouTube or Vimeo if you can find it. I would give this 4 stars out of 4 for the very direct reason it's chilling how Serling would have his thumb on negativity that is stopped by positivity. The Burgess Meredith character, everybody that has followed his career knows his sincerity. Burgess Meredith, and of course Fritz Weaver, because Fritz Weaver could play both sides of the coin, could have done this episode. It's a perfect timing. And Patterns of Force of Star Trek talked about that too as well, where the Earthmen has adopted what they call Adolf Hitler tactics to rebuild a planet. So this is just, again, a tremendous episode. So if you like what we're doing here with our Twilight Zone reviews, let us know with a like, comment, subscribe, or share.